Today's episode is presented by Lodestar, the fee experts.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this episode of Lending Leaders. Our guest today is Marina Hubenova, Director of Sales at Inspect HOA. The first-time guest, Marina, but we had Anton, the co-founder of your company last year, talking. I learned a lot about HOA and I'm so excited to have you back on the show, despite being a Lafayette alum. And then we can talk about kind of some of the exciting things you guys are working on now. So thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Awesome. Well, no, thank you, Jim. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Right. So we'd love for you to start about, kind of what Inspect HOA does traditionally, what you're working on now, and how did you get into the space to begin with as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Inspect HOA, our goal is really to help streamline the real estate transaction. Our core business is HOAs, and we help title and escrow companies, lenders, SFR investors to never deal with HOAs again. But as the company is developing, we are adding some additional offerings as well that are attributing to deal closings, helping our customers basically do more with us. So at the core of our company, we leverage very successful marriage, I would say, between people and technology. So, we have a big team who is expert, the entire team is experts in the space that they operate into, but we also leverage technology to help enable those people and introduce some more in-depth look at the data, the documents and everything. So, that's it on a high level.
And I think one of the things where we've always resonated on is we kind of have the same sales pitch in that, like, hey, you guys don't want to deal with closing costs. Let us do it, right? And your pitch is, you don't want to deal with the HOAs. They're a pain. Let us do it, right? So I think that's one of the things that I always like about your company is you very much want to be the expert in a very, very specific space. And for a while...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to add to that for the lender audience, HOAs, are one aspect of it, but we've also done a lot of work on condos as well. So we now do not only getting the documents for condos and condo questionnaires, but for our lender customers, we've also developed using technology, a product for condo eligibility review. So within only 4 hours, we can actually determine if a condo is Fannie and or Freddie eligible. So that's kind of how we marry our staff along with technology.
And now you're adding the kind of the payoff, the wire fraud product too. So what was the line from getting from HOAs to that? Was it from your team? Was it from customers? Like, how do you kind of go about that process of adding a new service?
Yeah, absolutely. So our customers are, front and center when we make a decision, whether we're going to start doing something or not. A lot of the products that we offer are, driven by our customers, and the mortgage payoff was driven by our title and escrow and law firm customers, because it's a very painful process. It's very similar to HOAs in a sense that it's super, super challenging to actually reach the lenders, get the payoffs, and there's a lot of room for issues to occur along the line, delays and fraud. So, our team basically has taken over that super painful process as well for them.
And I know when we talked about this in the beginning, when I think about payoffs, or think about wire fraud, I think about the buyer's money, that down payment, getting that savings, getting to the right person, getting to the title company, getting to the seller. But you kind of approached it from the other way, which I found interesting of, no, the seller actually is getting funds now, and then they're paying off their mortgage, which in some cases is more complicated because that mortgage could have been sold or transferred 3 different times, in the 10, 20 years since they had it. So was there a reason that you kind of went for that seller side on the payoff opposed to focusing on, what's kind of the more popular problem there?
So the problem that we help solve is basically getting the payoffs on behalf instead of, the title and escrow company, instead of them having to do the work, we do it. And whatever it is that they need and whatever it is that they order with us, our team would go ahead and obtain that in an attempt to save them time and hassle, because it's a very, very painful process.
Yep. And so what do you see, with your team as the throughway of you have kind of an efficient tech-enabled team, so we're going to take on these kind of more manual problems for you to be your back office?
Yeah, that's right. So through the technology that we leverage, we kind of minimize a lot of the room for error as well. So with mortgage payoffs, there's, again, as I mentioned, a lot of fraud going on now. And, having fewer people touch those, the fewer people that touch those, the better. So our technology solutions and, really help with kind of streamline that entire process and mitigate risk that way.
Yep. So one thing in looking at technology that we probably hear about in the industry daily almost is AI, right? Leveraging AI, machine learning. Is that something that you all have looked at? Is that something you hear a lot from folks in the industry that you talk to?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the core uses of AI that we use is taking a deeper look into the documents that we get from HOAs or what have you, and leveraging that technology to create insightful reporting and insightful data that can be easily digested by our customers. For example, rental restrictions is something that investors really care about, and they need to have analysis on the different possibilities of rental restrictions. Or the condo eligibility review that I mentioned, there are hundreds of pages of documentation that one has to go through to determine if a condo is eligible for Fannie and Freddie or not. And doing that manually is risk prone because you can miss something, and super time consuming. So our technology helps us do that within only 4 hours, and our human team just basically makes sure that we quality checks it and make sure that everything is good to go.
So one of the things that people think, right, is AI, we're going to have robots, digital workers replacing people, right? Like, how does the role of the person change when you're implementing something like that?
Well, it's kind of like almost the way I think about it. It's like the printing press, right? Like back in the day, there were people copying by hand books, and that's how knowledge was transferred. And then the printing press came about, and things accelerated, and other jobs were created as a result of that. So technology most certainly will eliminate some of the busy work for sure that people are doing, especially in the real estate industry. The state of the industry today is quite old fashioned. People still do everything everything manually, and it's still up for that technological revolution that would help enable them to be more efficient, faster with their jobs, and just provide better customer service. I don't necessarily see it, and Inspect HOA in general as a company doesn't see technology is replacing humans. It's more enabling humans to do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, I would wholeheartedly agree with that, and doing the things that are more impactful, right? That machines can't do.
Exactly.
Like, a machine's great at taking in information and pulling out what you need so you can review it. A machine's not really good at calling someone on the phone, right? Or building that relationship or showing your expertise. So I think people have a lot of misconceptions around that. And in talking to whether it be a lender client, a title agent client, and you're basically taking a lot of operations outside of them. So whether it be tech enabled or using an outside vendor like yourself, what hurdles do you see from someone wanting to, that will lead to you not making a sale?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that I have is the fear of change. So these the processes that we're tackling are historically very cumbersome, very risky, and there are a lot of things in those processes that can go wrong. So people are reluctant, are quite reluctant to actually let them go and trust another provider to basically take over for them. Because they just are worried that things are not going to go as planned. So I would say this is the biggest hurdle, and kind of like the fear of change, especially now when the market's volumes are down. I think a lot of people are wondering, well, if I outsource this, isn't that going to threaten my job? But the way I personally think about it is it's a way to kind of enable you to service your customers better and effectively to give you a competitive edge. Because to your point earlier, if you are spending time on the right things as opposed to stuff that don't necessarily adds value. Instead, you're spending time with your customer, listening to their concerns, addressing their concerns, providing even higher level and better level of customer service.
Mm-hmm.
That can help differentiate your business in such an environment.
Mm-hmm. Right, especially in something like title or lending, where it's mostly the same rates, it's mostly the same price. These are commoditized products in most cases, so you need to differentiate yourself and lower your costs somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And customers nowadays expect a lot, like the entire Amazon culture of
Yeah.
I want something and I want it yesterday. And,
Hmm.
it arrives at your door and then you don't like it. You just pop it in
Yeah.
the box and return it. And people just have a very elevated expectations in terms of customer service, I think, across the board. And a lot of
Yeah.
buyers, when faced with the closing process,
Hmm.
basically are a bit shocked with how much time it takes and how difficult it is and how many
Yeah.
different things are. So,
Yeah. There were a lot of steps along the way. I bought my first house a little over a year ago, and there were a lot of things, even being around the industry, that surprised me. That navigating and kind of potential pitfalls. Um, and I think it's I hope it becomes a less confusing process, but I think it's going to take a very long time to get there till it's something more akin to Amazon.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm. So you had mentioned, I know we've been talking for a couple of years on and off with your product, and haven't found a way to work together yet, but still like to promote each other and help each other out any way we can. You talk about your team, right? So I would be curious to see over the last couple of years what you've learned about hiring, as well as the industry at large.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from a hiring perspective, we always look for people who are aligning with our values and
Hmm.
are like-minded individuals who value integrity. That is super, super important to me as a
Hmm.
salesperson. I don't condone like the entire, anecdote of the used car salesman.
Yeah.
I think integrity is really, really important, and a lot
Hmm.
of additional values that we look for, kind of forward thinking, taking initiative, and just
Hmm.
um, pushing forward because we're a startup company, so we're really
Yeah.
making a big push to
Hmm.
change an industry which is overdue
Hmm.
for a change. And for me personally, kind of seeing those values in a person is even more valuable than hundreds of years of experience in a particular field.
Yeah.
Of course, if you find a combination of both, that's even better.
Hmm.
But yeah, these are some of the things that we focus
Mhm.
on.
Yeah, that actually got to my next question of, do you typically look for that industry experience um,
Of
in
course,
hiring roles? Okay.
yeah, it's necessary because it's most certainly it's a very complicated field, and we
Yeah.
need to have people who understand it well
Hmm.
to relate to customers better.
Hmm.
But what I'm saying is just industry
Yeah.
experience is not
Right.
enough. We do
Mhm.
look for those.
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty split, where I think about maybe half our company has had prior industry experience.
Yeah.
So depending on the role, it's not always something that we mandated. Quite frankly, in sales, I don't think it helps necessarily. And I think personally, I think you're paying a little bit of a premium for it. If I'm interviewing someone in a sales role, I always ask them the exact same question, which is, how to tell me about a time you've dealt with rejection.
It's funny. I asked the same
Yeah.
question. I mean, not
Hmm.
exactly the same way, but I do
Hmm.
ask them, "How do you think about rejection?"
Yeah.
And people are normally like, "Oh, it's fine, it's fine."
Yeah.
In my previous role, I actually hired a woman,
Hmm.
and I had the same conversation with her, and she was like, "No, I'm fine with rejection. This is so good." And then, I think like 6, 7 months into the job, she was like, "Oh my God, you were so right. This is so difficult."
Yeah.
So I know. I was like, "Yeah, I know, but you get over it. It's fine." But
One
yes,
of our
every month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of our salespeople now, who's performing fantastically, Isaac Strader, he was a musician and still is. And that's just a world where there's so much rejection. Like, he literally laughed at that question when we were interviewing him, because just the auditioning, there's just like constant rejection in that field. So I find that people who have that type of experience, hospitality, like dealing with people telling you no, is Good. And I like the question because you get some funny answers sometime. I had a intern who basically told me about when he goes down the Jersey Shore and talks to girls and gets rejected a lot. So
yeah, I can
but
imagine.
so it made me laugh. So with our last question here, we always like to ask people what inspires you. What's your lodestar? What's kind of gets you up in the morning and gets you excited about trying to solve these problems for the people that you work with?
I generally like to feel like I'm adding value to people. As I don't look at sales just from a relationship perspective. I do want to make sure that whatever we're offering to our customers is solving a problem and really adding value to their process. And I very strongly believe that Inspect HOA does exactly that. And I very strongly believe in the transformation that the real estate industry is undergoing and about to, kind of experience even more so in the upcoming years. Because my previous job, I actually also don't have extensive real estate experience. I come from a financial services background. And worked for a financial services firm right after 2008 and saw how the finance industry transformed and started leveraging much more technology after they experienced the pains of 2008. Now, I'm not comparing 2008 to what's going on right now, but most certainly there is a downturn and people are evaluating. So for me, this is what motivates me, just being a part of this very exciting change and adding value to people.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think it really steps on part of what I love about this industry is it's always changing. Everything touches it. It's always dynamic. You can literally talk to anyone about real estate or housing because everyone needs a place to live. Like it's something that is really universal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, Marina, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. We'll share your information. If anyone's looking to find you, where's the best place to reach out?
You can email me at marina@inspecthoa.com, or you can go to inspecthoa.com and just contact us through there. We'll be happy to help. And thank you so much for having me, Jim. It's always such a pleasure.
Cool. Yep. Thanks for your time. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.